He's frozen.
Are we frozen?
Lori, you're frozen.
I just sent her a message to let her know. I think she's the only one frozen. I'm sure Laura will be coming back in momentarily.
I feel like cracking jokes, but we're being recorded, so.
Don't let that stop you, Lisa.
Sylvia Alexander,
Present.
Bob Bender,
Here,
Kelly Buford,
Present.
Lisa Daub,
Present.
Nick Fazio,
Present.
David Gelman, not yet. Julia Gomez. Wait, is that him?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay.
I'm here. I'm at the office.
Okay. Julia Gomez, Rosemary Ginty,
Here.
Ed Green,
Yeah.
Chuck Merdler, Omar Murray, Camelia Tepelos, Laura, not yet. Stephen Vasquez, Sergio Villaverde, Marty Walpoff
Here.
up there, Rob Jaglowski. That's it until Laura comes back.
Okay,
Okay,
Rob, I think I'm 68 on this.
Oh, there's Margaret Della. They always leave you off this.
I was just gonna say. My
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe I don't.
Mine is it, you know? Yeah, mine, I know. They left mine off too, but okay. Okay.
if nobody objects, I can start with the district manager's report, just to save some time until the chair arrives. Okay, good evening, everyone. As you know, we sent out information that we got from the borough president's office and the mayor's office, that we're allowed to meet remotely through October 22nd. Unfortunately, we never had to go back to meeting in person.
Okay.
It just never got down to us. So we'll be meeting virtually until we hear otherwise. I have purchased more equipment for when we do go back hybrid, where people on Zoom would be able to participate in the meeting, you know, just like additional speakers and things like that. And we will have plenty of time to practice if and when, before we go back. Budget consultations have completed for this year. I know David was on all of the budget consultations. I'm sure he'll report on those. Our new website will finally go live sometime next week. It's taken a lot of work and we've made a lot of progress. Registration is now open for the Tour de Bronx, which is going to be held on October 23rd. If anyone needs information, reach out to the office and I can send it to you. For committee chairs, please remember to reach out to the board office. If you have a vice chair, we want to finalize the committee lists and resend it out. We learned today that the Department of Sanitation will continue to collect trash this weekend. Sunday into Monday, even though it's gonna be Columbus Day. And that's my report. Thank you. And I see Laura is here just in time.
That was very hairy, people. That has never happened before, and I hope the rest of the evening goes smoother, and I pray to the technology gods. Okay, so let me start with approval of the executive committee.
Well,
minutes.
I'm sorry, the district manager just gave a report. Should we entertain questions for her or leave it for the end? It's up to you, Madam
Why
Chair.
don't we do it now? Excuse me.
Okay, so Kira, just two quick questions, please, in your report. Number one, you say the website is going, I forget the term you use, it's going up or coming live or whatever, it's okay. Is part of that all the corrections that need to be made over the years that you weren't able to make, or that will come later?
Yeah, hopefully, all the corrections have been made. We've had to design this and work it our own, which took a lot of learning, and just, working through that. But everything that should be up there, will be.
Good, thank you. That's all, you
yeah,
don't have to go, that's.
I
okay,
also
that's-
want to just ask for patience
Mhm.
and comments. If things are not right or things should be there and they're not there, obviously, we're only human. So just send us an email and we'll work to fix it. Thank you.
Okay, this is not a criticism. It's that we've been waiting for so long for
know.
this. It takes a lot. We're working. So now that it's ready to start, I just want to know does that mean everything is ready to start, or we're starting new and then we were able to make the corrections? That was my only question.
Yeah, I wanted it
Okay.
all done at once. So
Okay,
it's going to
thank
be
you.
ready when it's live. Yep.
thank you. So the second question is, I'd like to hear that on the hybrid thing that at someday we'll be doing, the one, and it's not criticism, but I think one thing that would be nice to be improved from the one meeting that we had at the Y, the people on Zoom had no ability to talk to us. That's what it seemed to me anyway. They had no ability. And so you just said that you're buying equipment so that people on Zoom will be able to communicate with the meeting that's going on. Yes?
Yes, it's
Did I
already
hear that right?
purchased. Yeah, we already have it. So once we are ready to do hybrid again, that should not be a problem.
That would be a wonderful improvement. Thank you, Kira. Thank you.
Thank you.
May
If
I
I-
add, may
if
I
I-
add that a lot of it depends on Wi-Fi capability. And I know for the September meeting, Kira tested our equipment the day before. She spent a long time at the Y. This has taken many hours of participation on her part, and everything worked. The day of the meeting, nothing worked. And is there
Well,
a
our
reason?
plan A didn't work. Our plan B worked.
And B,
So that's why it's
yeah.
important, to have more than one option. But yeah, a lot of this, as you know,
There's a lot of drama. That's what I have learned with this. And it, like I said, it depends on Wi-Fi, and it depends on we just got some other equipment. We have to test it out at the sites, in advance. And then it's still, you're not sure. I don't know, Kira, if you mentioned that we were looking to purchase a hotspot. I don't know if you covered that.
no, I didn't. So I will just quickly add, a lot of places we want to meet at do not have Wi-Fi. If they do have Wi-Fi, it might not be very good to hold a meeting. You need a lot of bandwidth. So a lot of people have suggested buying a hotspot. That's proved more difficult than I think any of us imagined, because the city has approved phone plans, data plans that we would have to get on. No one seems to have ever bought one before. So we're working through that because everything has to be on a city contract and approved. But I also will know, just from personal experience using a hotspot that I have on my phone plan, it's not perfect. So I don't think a hotspot will be our end all be all. We really just need to find locations that have secure and good Wi-Fi. So we're going to be relying on our colleges, on the Y, and different places that have good Wi-Fi. And again,
David.
if you guys have any suggestions or places that we haven't met at before, definitely reach out, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
David, your hand is up.
Yeah, can everybody hear me? Can you raise your hands if you can hear me?
Can hear you.
Bender, can you hear me? Marty, can you hear me? Margaret? Margaretella, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, and Sylvia, can you hear me? Okay, this is a hybrid meeting. Right here, right now, there are 13 faces that I'm looking at. I can see each one of you. Yes, I'm way back here, but a hybrid meeting in the office, Wi-Fi hotspot is a different story. I'll get to that in a minute. But a hybrid meeting in the office, which would accommodate most of our committees, all but the largest 3 or 4 can be accommodated here, where members of the community can come here, or they can dial in via their phone or via the Zoom on their computer. But we do, this shows that hybrid meeting can be done by us. Now, in terms of the Wi-Fi hotspot, that is a big issue. For those who don't know, a Wi-Fi hotspot is basically using a cell phone that's got a certain data plan, as Kira was suggesting, that enables it to go back over the cellular lines to make a Wi-Fi connection and come into Zoom. That, as you can imagine, the city is probably pretty stingy about giving out cell phones to anybody because they're easily abused and all that. So I'm sure that Kira has to jump through many hoops to even get it approved, nonetheless test it out. But my presence here shows that hybrid does work and we can do it. So those of you with smaller committees should seriously consider having your meetings here so that folks can come in, be with you in person, and those who, for whatever reason, can't make it to the meeting can Zoom in.
Yeah, we
that's it.
invested a lot of money in the conference room, in upgrading it so that we could do this, cameras, you know, the voices, the Wi-Fi, the bandwidth, the huge TV screen. And we did it for ENS. We've had 1 meeting so far. I mean, we're walking before we're running, and this has
That's right.
been extremely successful.
Yes.
We're gonna have
I'm looking at a 5-foot TV, which makes it much easier for me to see everybody. So one consideration when we go to other places is possibly a laptop with a projector with a screen, or just merely accommodating the circumstances and having the chair of the committee have a laptop in front of them so that they can see exactly who has their hand raised, whatever, 2 feet in front of you. It may not show the whole crowd, although that the committee chair could also turn the laptop around so that it would face a questioner at the table. So those are a couple of options, but it is quite viable and has worked out reasonably well. Laura and Pablo approved it last week by having their meeting here, and it may have seemed different because they were sitting close to the screen, but actually that's why I wanted to do it from here, to see if you could hear me from the full length of the room. So I think the acoustics are reasonably good, and I think the way we should be approaching these things is that we're doing the best that we can under the technical limitations that we have, and that we want to try to accommodate our community as much as possible. I think this is a reasonable accommodation. Just like, and there will be other hiccups, I am certain, just like the first shot out at the Riverdale Y. I think there'll be more, but on the whole, the premise works. It's just how we agreed 2.5 years ago to go into Zoom. We had no idea it was going to work. It actually worked out very well, but
David, I see another hand. Let me just, because we're going to return to hybrid because our resolution said that after 3 months, we're going to do an evaluation.
Yeah. Okay.
And review. So we're going to be discussing this later in the program as well. Marty?
Yes, as I expressed to you after the meeting at the Y, and David has proven again, the acoustics are not that great. He sounds like he's speaking in a cavern, and I can't imagine 15 people, 8 people in that room what kind of sound we're gonna get. So, I just think maybe a second microphone on the table or something that gets rid of that cavern.
Yeah, it kind of does sound like he's at the bottom of the well, but I mean, I could hear him.
If most people understand me, I appreciate that the acoustics are not concert hall level, but could you reasonably well understand me? Yes, no?
Yeah.
I never understand you.
Thank you, Marty.
Okay, so later on, I think in the meeting, we're going to talk about extenuating circumstances, correct, Marty? Which has to do with the hybrid model and is part of our, and our whole program here. We accomplished at the Y what we set out to accomplish, seeing if people could see our meeting and watch the proceeding. While we weren't able to have interactive, like I said, we have to walk before we can run. All right, so any other questions for Kira? Okay, so let's talk about the approval of the executive committee minutes from September 7th. Are there any comments or objections to the minutes? Are there any abstentions on the minutes? So the minutes have unanimously passed from September 7th, and thank you. Okay, chairperson's report. Today, I had a terrific experience with the HPD van that was in our district over at 231st and Godwin Terrace. We partnered with Councilman Dinowitz on bringing it there for a couple of hours to answer all the tenant questions. And there was steady business. And I want to thank Stephen Vasquez, who joined me, and the council person for having a terrific, very productive day. I want to mention the November calendar, and I'll of course mention it again. The second Tuesday turns on Election Day, so we will be meeting for the full board meeting next month on Thursday, the 10th. So, please adjust your calendars. I'll say a few things about, we had a public hearing on the 29th. It was an excellent opportunity for the public to give us more comments, for us to participate with the public, with the community, and to get all those comments to the School Construction Authority. While the School Construction Authority was not at the meeting, Sylvia and I felt that it was important to have the public hearing anyway, because we wanted to be in a timely timeframe for those comments. The comments were on point. They dealt with everything from the small footprint of the school to the large footprint of the housing project, to the interaction with the community on congestion and traffic, and what's there for the kids and what's not there for the kids, because the school's a half an acre. When visitation opened back in the 50s, they had 700 students, but they had the entire site. So the community at great length, all their comments will go to the School Construction Authority. The next steps include more involvement with our elected officials. The elected officials over there are Assembly Jeffrey Dinowitz and Councilman Eric Dinowitz. Currently, it is Senator Biaggi, who, as we know, is out the door, basically, technically not, but, and Senator Jackson is presumed to win on Election Day, and his term will start in January. But I know the community is reaching out to the elected officials and engaging with them. Oh, by the way, the Congressman is Espaillat. The office, we are reaching out to all the electeds to get them together to strategize here. A lot of takeaways, on this, and the plan as it currently is cheating the children, and the taxpayers are not getting what we're paying for. I mean, the value is not there. We supported the school. we support a school, but the devil is in the details. And this is, moving forward, we're going to be, like I said, working with the elected officials. They have more clout than we do, and see if all the different parties can speak with each other and somehow improve this plan between Tishman and School Construction Authority, Department of Education. So that's on that. Let me see. I think that is my report, and I will move on to the treasurer's report. Joy is not here tonight.
We have hand up.
Oh, Rosemary.
Yeah, thank you. You can hear me, right? I never know if I've muted myself or not. So just two questions, maybe one is a little longer than the other, but the meeting on September 29th, I think you would agree, Madam Chair, I know a number of people on this, in the executive committee attended, not all, but many did. And I think it's fair to say that there was displeasure in the meeting going to full Zoom 2 hours before the stated time of the meeting that was to take place in Van Cortlandt Park Golf Course. I think that's fair to mention, and there was some upsetting about that. Number two, I'm told, I came late to the land use committee, but am I incorrect in stating that there is going to be another public hearing for both entities, School Construction Authority and Tishman, in early November? Am I wrong in making that statement?
Well, I was in touch with Chuck, and that date is not a good date. It's the night before Election Day, and elected officials will not be available. So that date, November 7th, is not a good date.
And therefore?
And therefore, I would not be in favor of having a public hearing on a date when the elected officials cannot make it. As it is on the 29th, it was bad enough that School Construction Authority couldn't make it. But then there was a big Democratic something going on at Lehman College for all the electeds and everything. So they couldn't make it. So that is not a good date. And I will say, so I'm saying so.
Okay, so Madam Chair, but I am correct in stating that at the Land Use Committee meeting, it was stated there would be a hearing on that day.
Actually, it was thrown out.
Oh, excuse, let me just finish. Let me finish. It's okay. So you're not tripping over my words. So if that's not a good date, are you looking at another date? That's my second question.
I would not put out a date unless I had a commitment from School Construction Authority that they would attend. So when that criteria is met, that's when I would announce a date. I'm not going to do the same thing. Announce a date, they said no, lots of drama, lots of letters, back and forth. So that is what I'm going to do.
Okay, one final word, because I really do not want this to be a back and forth, but it again was reported that the elected officials had an agreement from SCA to show up for whatever next date we came up with. Or once again, did I mishear that, or was it reported to me incorrectly?
It must have been reported incorrectly, because that's not what I heard. But like,
okay, no, that's fine. That you heard something, I heard something different.
absolutely.
Okay. Just the second question, the community board minutes. You're at the last community board. We weren't able to adopt them because things were not in writing, or where's Rob? Rob, you know, the pieces where you were
Yes,
just given
yes.
verbally and
Yeah,
Sergio
so,
said, table it all. So so are we going to get printed minutes from 2 meetings ago to look at before we have to vote on them? That's my question.
Well, I've cut and pasted Dan's language into those minutes, so those minutes currently have been updated to address both Camilia's and Dan's concerns, so they exist. How they're going to be circulated, I don't know.
Okay, so I would say, Madam Chair, I think it's important to circulate minutes that we're being asked to vote on. I think that's kind of a basic function to send out the minutes. You have 2 people who had comments and things have changed, but we as a board and board members are being asked to vote on minutes. I suggest that you send out the printed minutes for 2 meetings ago that we can look at before we have to vote on them at the next board meeting. Thank you.
Bob Bender, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, since the question's been raised, I was at the September 29th meeting. And as I recall, there were 35 people present for that Zoom meeting. And I believe 3 of them had some concern about the fact that the meeting had been moved from in-person to fully remote. So I just wanted to provide a little context. That's all. Thank you.
Seeing no hands. Okay. Let me just say, Joy had a conflict and could not be here tonight, regrettably, and the treasurer's report was distributed. And are there any comments? I mean, Kira, can you say a word or two about in general about the
Yeah,
report?
sorry, I'm trying to get my video back on. Okay. I will note, and I worked on
You
the
could-
treasurer report, but it is virtually the same as last month. OMB had a delay in getting us the report due to budget consultations. And our staff member who does a lot of the FMS work was out for pretty much the first 2 weeks of September. So virtually the same report. Our bills got paid Monday in full. So the next report will reflect all those changes.
Thank you. Anybody has any questions, please send them in. Okay, so
I have a question.
of course you do.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Rosemary.
I'll take that as a compliment.
I wish you to.
I hope that Joy would have been here a number of meetings ago. I think also Joy wasn't able to be here, and I think Kira, I think you gave the report, the treasurer's report. Part of the report was that $5,000 were spent on trees in Marble Hill, and I do remember a series of questions from a number of members, not me, by the way, but from a number of members. And there was, people didn't remember when this issue was presented to the board for a vote. I think, and Madam Chair, you can correct me on this, but the last meeting, or they all get jumbled up in my head, but
They get jumbled up in my head too.
good, very good. So we'll fumble along, but I think we'll get the essence of what I'm getting at. I think, Kira, you had said that it was discussed at an executive committee meeting. And Laura, you said it was discussed at 3 executive committee meetings. And in requesting the tape, when it was discussed, no tape ever came. And I think then this is the bottom line that I think, Madam Chair, you said that maybe it was a mistake or you misread or whatever, that it was never discussed at an executive committee meeting or a board meeting. So therefore, having said that, I think the expenditure of $5,000 for trees that I think some people have asked for the locations, right? And it wasn't approved by the board. I think it's fair to say that the full board and maybe the executive committee deserves an explanation about how that was done, how it was arrived at. And I'll stop with that instead of going into 10 questions. But I would request that the treasurer or whoever wants to do it gives an explanation to the executive committee or the board about that issue. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on. Looking for my agenda. Okay. Rosemary, just so you know, Rob Jaglowski reached out to Dan and to Camelia, who asked those original questions about the trees, and we got language from them.
Yeah, that's the
Minutes.
substance of
You know, the
Dan.
minutes will be
Yeah.
approved. I think you were there when I said I misspoke. And we got the $5,000 from Councilman Rodriguez originally, and then it continued to Carmen De La Rosa when she took over that office of councilperson. The trees were paid for after they were planted. I said, moving forward, maybe, I think you were there, that it would be reviewed by the board, by the exec, that we now have 1,500 that we never wanted. We didn't need from that same office. And we are forming a committee of people who live in Marble Hill. We started to reach out to them on how to spend that money in Marble Hill. So that we'll be giving a report on that shortly. And the people who've raised it, they're not here tonight. So I'm puzzled, you know, we've discussed this already. That's it. We'll have, we're working on the new budget. There's nothing I can do about the old budget, but
Yes, it did, Madam Chair, it does, to the extent that
you know,
the information was not there, the information was not there for the full board. It should be there for the full board. That's why the minutes should be sent to all of us. I think the minutes reflect, well, we'll see what they say. Probably more questions than answers. That's my only point, that I do think this issue, $5,000, is significant enough, seeing as how the information that was given to us was, I'm searching for a word, incomplete. Is that a fair word? Incomplete, not exactly complete. That the full board does deserve an explanation of how the $5,000 was agreed to, approved, and spent. That's my only point. That's it.
we'll move on. Thank you, Rosemary. We'll move on to the discussion of FY 2024 expense and capital budget priorities. We're starting that hearing next week at 6:30. Originally, we scheduled it for 7 o'clock because we were meeting at the Y and we didn't have access to the room until 6:30 for setting up. So they said we couldn't start at 6:30. Now that we're on Zoom for this meeting, we're starting at 6:30. Okay? All right. David, you're on.
Okay.
David, who we could hear and we can see.
Very good. Marty, is it clear enough for you? Anyway.
I'll make do.
Thank you, Marty. I appreciate your working extra hard for us. I just wanted to say, yes, Kira and I, and on occasion, Laura, I think Sylvia made education, but basically we had our consults with the agencies. Similar to years gone by, nothing dramatic changed. I think there was more that the agencies replied to issues that were raised or budget items that were raised. And then the district managers took the opportunity to raise particular concerns that they had within their districts. And I thought it was, generally a cooperative couple of sessions. Karen and Laura and I will be meeting Friday a week tomorrow with State Senator Gustavo Rivera to talk about some of our budget interests, just like we did with Councilman Dinowitz. While I know the senator a little bit on a personal level, I don't have any particular things that I want to bring to him, though Laura and Kira may. But I also encourage you folks to let us know things that you would like to have addressed with the senator, things that you think he might be particularly amenable to hear. That's about it for those things. In terms of these priorities, we discussed them and created them back in May for expense and capital. We talked about them again last month, and there weren't significant changes. The only comments I received back were from Steve Fruit, who thought that, I don't have it in front of me, that a couple of the items sounded very similar, and I think they were the subjects that we discussed at length about this kind of step street versus that kind of step street. And we went around on that and decided to keep it the way it was. But so at this point, I open the floor to any changes that you'd like to make to, at the moment, the expense priorities that we have up there. Does anybody have any particular edits or reorderings that they want to bring to our attention?
David, do you want to bring up the Kingsbridge Heights request that just came in? Or Bob? We're on the Capitol, right? Are we, I'm not seeing the top.
Yeah, Kira, can you bring us back to the top? No, these are expenses, I thought.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
All right.
I had to leave the room. I had to get some water, and so I missed the
Yeah, I
beginning.
did
Okay, I see
too.
where we are now. Sorry.
That's all right. But at any rate, so are there any particular changes that you as chairs want to bring forward? Because after tonight or tomorrow, we will share this with the board and publish it on our website. I think here we did send it out to everybody on the board, right?
Correct. And
Okay.
this version is on our website.
Oh, it is. Okay. So this is what will be discussed next week, barring any changes that you folks want to make right now, because we didn't hear anything from board members. Are there any other comments about the expense priorities listed here? Okay, then let's move on to the capital budget priorities.
I have one thing, but I've lost my screen here. Can you hear me okay?
I
Yes.
can hear you.
Quite well. Expense or capital?
Yeah, this is expense. I just noticed the very last item might be a duplicate, 38, which is health hospitals. And I'm using the one on the website just because it was easier to grab. And it might be a duplicate with 24.
Maybe 38 and 24.
Yeah.
Counseling services for DSS.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw the one on the bottom. I said, well, it has to be a higher priority than that. And then I saw 24. So, okay. That's it.
Thank you.
We good?
Okay, so let's move on to capital, please. So the same caveats here. Laura, I don't think I know what you're talking about with the Kingsbridge, but please.
She wrote, Bob, you want to explain what happened at your meeting?
Well, yeah, at the most recent Parks Committee meeting, we had somebody speak from Kingsbridge Heights Community Center which actually is Parks Department property. And they have a very serious capital situation with a leaking roof, parapets, et cetera. They've been instructed to put up some protective sheds because of loose masonry and so on. I mean, it really sounds terrible. It sounds dire. And they have raised some money, but not sufficient money to address the situation. I have two reactions, and actually, since Margaret Della is at the meeting, and she is the executive director of the Kingsbridge Heights Community Center, we should give her an opportunity to speak. But, you know, first of all, these are budget priorities for the next fiscal year. And from what I heard, and from the information we've received from the person who spoke at the Parks Committee meeting, this situation sounds like it's urgent, you know, not something that can wait for another year. You know, I think frankly, it needs to be addressed as quickly as possible. And I don't know that putting it on this capital budget request now is really going to be useful. You know, I think their situation requires more immediate response. But Margaret, I would actually invite you to comment on the situation.
I just want to add that it was the chief financial officer who explained the situation to us at the Parks meeting.
Right.
And we would, of course, the underlying message was that you may have to relocate your program because if the building is not safe. And certainly the board would like to know how we can be helpful here. I know that she mentioned she was meeting with the borough president's office, et cetera. You know, this is a bad situation. We're bringing it up. We had discussed bringing it up during the budget issues to see, you know, how this might be helpful. But Margaret, why don't you please feel free.
Yeah, I think Bob captured it really well. This has been a long process that we've been working through, and ultimately, you know, prior to the pandemic, we were ready to move forward with dollars that we had secured, but as anyone who's had a capital project has seen how it's budgets have doubled and tripled, et cetera. So ours definitely doubled. We had city dollars for it, and KHCC was ready to take on the project itself. However, with the project doubling, we had, you know, we probably raised another $1 million, but it went from 2 to 3 to now it's at 4.2. And that's the basement right now. And so KHCC as a tenant, you know, we're very nervous about, you know, opening up the building and getting things going, even if we were able to secure, you know, another 1.5 million. What that means for KHCC and just to take on that liability when we don't have the asset. That's a big liability for us. We're a $14 million agency, and this is a $4.2 million project at this point. So I definitely agree with everyone that, you know, the funding is to be requested through this process is too lengthy. The work has to be done soon. You know, we're putting up the sidewalk sheds to get us through the winter, and really the work needs to begin, you know, in the spring and summer. It needs to be concluded in 2023. So it would be great to have a message of support here that the funding should be included for KHCC or for Parks Department, or I'm trying to talk with the city of New York and see if there's an agency that could do the work, that KHCC could transfer the funds that we do have, because they've been secured by our assemblymen and council members, et cetera, and borough president, and to transfer those funds to that city agency so they can do the work and, you know, have the asset and the liability and really expedite this process so that the services in the community are not paused or disrupted.
Thank you, Margaret. I just, to give context, years ago, understanding that Kingsbridge Heights Community Center is under the Parks Department because it was previously a police station. We had it on our list. There was capital projects, and then they happened. So we took Kingsbridge Heights off the list. So there's a history. My thing that I want to say to the exec is if it's somewhere on this list, even though the timeline is not wonderful, we do our statement of needs statement coming up. And when it's on our budget list, we could push it in the statement of needs and also push it in letters to the elected officials. So I don't know, how do you feel about that, Bob?
Well, I
Anyone?
would defer to Margaret. I think it's something that needs to be funded as quickly as possible, and that's going to have to be outside of this process,
That's
which,
right.
as we've discussed, it takes time. So I would prefer to deal with it separately and immediately with the elected officials.
Yes,
But
well,
that's,
that we could do for
but
sure.
again, that's my point of view, and the person who is really most knowledgeable about this, and I think should be the person to speak to this issue is Margaret.
Yeah. All right, Margaret, does that sound good? Because until the Parks Committee meeting last week, we did not know about this, and we want to help. So we'll get those letters out to the electeds.
Thank
And
you.
why don't we talk offline? Anything you feel that who we should write to, how we could support you, how we could support a grant, why don't we have that conversation? Okay?
If I may, I mean, this process, I'm certainly sympathetic to this, but in a way, I feel like it's too little, too late. I mean, it is the timing that we're talking about is next June. And Bob noted, it's a bit of a distance off, but also it is very rare, almost never, do any of these line items reach $1 million. So I wouldn't want you to put too much energy into this because I'm not sure how well it would deliver toward your $4.2 million. I think we have more success with things like the councilman and maybe, or, we'll talk about it, our discussion with the senator next week. Maybe it would be more appropriate there, but I don't know that a capital item like $4.2 million is going to get much of anything. I think the urgency needs to be brought to the councilman's attention, the senator's attention, maybe the borough commissioner, because you're right, it is their property and they're responsible for it in so many ways.
Okay, so are there any other comments on this? And Margaret, you and I will talk some more, for sure. But are there any other comments? So David, should we conclude this segment?
Oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I thought you
I
meant more
see.
comments. I thought you meant more comments on Kingsbridge Heights Community Center. I'm sorry. I
No,
thought
more
that's-
comments, more,
On the capital budget list, yes?
sure.
Okay, so sorry. I was a little behind I was behind there. Just something to be considered in rereading the list. Number 17, it says Independence Avenue sidewalk. Reconstruct sidewalk on east side of Independence across the width of mapped but unbuilt portion of West 242nd Street. Okay, so I just a couple of comments on that I put out for your consideration. Number one, the width of the street is like a postage stamp. Probably 1% of the concrete that DOT poured for Palisade K-Park would take care of that. So it's not a capital budget issue. Number two, it is not the way DOT does sidewalks across mapped streets. I would, and I think people know this street, 259th Street, where Delafield comes into 259th. You will see on the south side of the street, there is a sidewalk, and then there's the red thing that goes down, right? And that comes up, but there's no street because that's a mapped but unbuilt street, just like 242nd Street is at Independence. So even there, they don't build a sidewalk straight across because it's a mapped street. They don't do that. So that's number two. But number three, there are sewers on both sides. I don't think it's possible to build a sidewalk across two sewers. So I would just, I throw those three things out for consideration for this being on there. Did I make sense? Yes?
This is a TNT item. This was submitted by TNT.
Number 7, it says TNT DOT Independence Avenue sidewalk.
Mhm.
That's what it says. Yeah.
Kelly, do you have any comments or welcome to?
I don't have any comments and I'm not familiar with that location.
That's, and again, I'm just, because I'm reading the list now, I'm raising it for consideration of whoever wants to look at it. That's all.
Are there any other comments on the capital list? David, do you have any comments on what Rosemary was saying?
No.
Okay, so does this conclude this conversation on the budget items that will be presented to the full board next week?
I believe so.
Okay, so we'll move on to committee resolutions. All right, thank you, David.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. We have some public safety resolutions.
Okay, Kira, I'm gonna go, okay?
Go ahead. Thanks. Ed.
All right, so Public Safety Committee had 7 resolutions. I'll try to give you the shorthand version of this. We had a renewal for Claudy's Kitchen at 5981 Broadway. No complaints by the 50th. Passed unanimously. We had a renewal for Santa Fe Grill at 6025 Broadway. Same deal, no complaints by the 50th. Committee passed it unanimously. We had an application for alteration. So this was the alteration. The place is Collier Bar and Grill, located at 3638 Bailey Avenue, and the alteration was going to be basically a private sidewalk cafe. So this got a little complex. I'm just going to read the entire resolution because that's, I think, the easiest way to explain this. So whereas Sandra Alaya, a representative of Kaye Bar and Grill, located at 3638 Bailey Avenue, appeared before the Public Safety Committee on September 20th, 2022 to apply for an alteration to the establishment. Whereas Captain Gervin, commanding officer of the 50th Precinct, stated NYPD has received multiple 311 complaints for noise, double parking, and other quality of life disturbances at the location of this establishment. Whereas Bronx Community Board 8, our office, has received a variety of complaints from area residents about this establishment. Whereas the representative for Kaye Bar and Grill was unable to provide sufficient information regarding patron capacity for the proposed alteration. Whereas the Public Safety Committee voted unanimously to table this application until more information is provided regarding patron capacity and what measures the business is going to take to prevent the type of disturbances that were reported. So be it resolved, the Bronx Community Board 8 is tabling this application until further notice. And I think we were generous to just table it because we have received a lot. We had, that's it. We're gonna give them an opportunity to come back and tell us what they're gonna do to quell the onslaught of complaints. And I think that's as generous as this committee can do, but we're not gonna approve of them.
Whoa,
I hear myself echoing. What's going on?
yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Marty, can someone mute Marty?
Yeah, Marty, you might have two screens going, or you did.
I keep losing this one here.
All right, I think we're good. All right, so that's the deal with the application. We're tabling that. We voted to table it until further notice. I don't know if they're gonna come back or not, but we're not gonna approve that application until they prove to us that they're trying to do something about all the disturbances that they've been causing in the neighborhood. Okay, we also had a new application for and a temporary retail permit for Cote Wine Bar, which is at 5639 Marshallou Avenue. And they signed a 2 a.m. agreement. It's a new business, new application. We approved that application unanimously. We had a new application for wine, beer, and cider for Frida Tacos at 5786 Marshallou Avenue. This is a new business also. A 2 a.m. agreement was signed. We approved that unanimously. And right next door, the same owners are starting a business also. It's for a full liquor license called Andare. It's located at 5782 Marshallou Avenue. And they signed a 2 a.m. agreement for that. And we passed that unanimously. And the only thing I will say is that usually when our committee has this many, well, we have 7. So we usually try to pass them in one shot to avoid, but in this particular case, unless anybody has any suggestions, I would say we vote on 6 of them at the full board and then vote on that other one separately in case there's any, I mean, the committee passed them all unanimously, but I just smell potential questions about that one. So unless anybody has any suggestions, I think that's the way we're going to go about it. Those are our resolutions.
Thank you. All right, we'll present it as however, like that in case there's any further questions on that.
You have a hand up.
Boy, you made up for, you had a very busy month. So I see 2 hands. Rosemary, is that from before?
You're muted.
I'm muted? No.
No,
No,
Rosemary.
I am,
Oh,
I am. May I go? May I
Yep.
speak?
Yes.
Okay. Ed, is the one that you tabled, I remember, my memory says a number of months ago, there was another item in that neighborhood. I thought it was Bailey Avenue 2 that was tabled, asking them to come back with something. Is it the same? Is it the same place or no? Do you know what I'm saying? Do you remember that?
Not in recent history. There was an issue over there with complaints. They can never nail it down which there's 2 businesses over there. So the complaints come from across the street. So one says it's this one, the other one says it's the other one. So no, we don't have anything else tabled over there as far as I know.
Okay, thank you.
And
Thank you.
if I do come across that, I'll let you know because I'm not
Thank
aware of it
you.
right now. You're welcome.
Mhm. I just remember something on Bailey that got tabled and the request was you have to come back with some plan or something. It sounded a bit similar, but it's not the same. That's fine. Thank you, Ed. Thank you.
I think things got complicated because of the fire.
Kelly's hand is up. Kelly?
David just mentioned what I was getting ready to say, that because of the fire, I think the place is Tulila or something like that. But the fire, they're closed because of the fire.
That's correct.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I was trying to raise my hand, but I don't,
Oh,
I'm on
okay.
a different computer because I
Oh.
have some technical issues.
Tell me about computers. Go ahead.
Yeah, but, just to concur, There's 5 businesses that lead up to Kaje. All of them are closed because of repairs to that building that have been delayed. So in terms of complaints, I'm not sure if we have done outreach and followed up with those complaints. This is the first that I'm hearing of them. Had I known that there was an onslaught of complaints, as Chair Green said, I'm sure that I would have worked with Tanya and Kira to reach out to the business beforehand. Now, I assume that there was a meeting. I mean, they showed up to the public safety meeting, and there was a conversation about what they should do. But I just want to let Kira know and the board office that if there are complaints, let's discuss how we want to reach out the business in the interim. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Okay. I know there are other resolutions as well. We'll get them up. Okay, Bob Bender, you're on.
Yes, at our meeting last week, we had a presentation from the Parks Department regarding repair of the staircase in Ewan Park, the Johnson Avenue staircase. For those of you who are familiar with it, that's the one way up above in the park. And those stairs have been in disrepair for some time. There's now funding for, sorry about that. There's now funding for repair of that staircase. And we had a presentation by the Parks Department, which was very thorough. We had people there from the Friends of Ewan Parks, as well as the committee members. It was a very good presentation. Everybody was quite impressed by it. And the committee voted unanimously to approve the plan as it was presented to us, and with the usual stipulation that if there are any substantive alterations to the plan, we expect the Parks Department to come back to us. I did ask that the plan be circulated to the members of the executive committee. I don't know whether that was done today or not, but in any case, everybody will see it prior to the board meeting.
Bob, I believe Pablo sent it out late this afternoon.
Good, thank you, Kira.
Mhm.
Are there any
So
comments?
this is a badly needed project, and all of us who were there thought it looked very good.
Are there any comments? Why don't I have this? Okay, seeing no hands, we'll move on to the next one. Okay, I note Camelia is not here this evening. This was a
Oh,
matter,
excuse me, I thought this resolution was coming up later in the agenda.
yes, Kira, let's do the land use. That would,
Give me just one moment. Let me pull that up.
Sure. Okay, so land use, public safety. Then we'll do that one last.
Sorry, one second. Can you guys see my screen yet?
No.
Okay. Should be there. You see the screen, right?
Yes,
Yes.
Thank you.
You want me to talk to these?
Sure. Let's go to the top, Kira.
Yep, we're at the top.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
first
okay. You know
one-
what? Right, it's just the be it resolves. Am I correct? Okay, got it.
The first one is mere formality, basically. At the building, 600 West 246th Street, we have approved in the past, and apparently these approvals are given a time reference and require renewal. There were two stores in the basement of this building, or in the front level of the building, one a tailor shop and the other an invitation store. They call it a stationery store. But they took orders for printing invitations. Both of those functions they're out of business. They're vacant spaces. The building would like to rent to someone else. Initially, in concept is to do exactly the same two items. They don't have anybody yet. We thought that there was no problem in the first place. If they decide somehow that they can't get a laundry, a valet service, or a stationery store to replace it, they would come back to us with an alternative for our input, that instead of having one of these two stores, we're gonna have this one instead. We thought there was no reason not to renew their application, let it go forward. That's the first one. The second one, we were requested by Stag that in this season of trying to get concrete poured and make the building go up faster, they would do well to have 1 extra hour on Saturdays. We want to see them finish. The neighbors next door, who have the greatest concern, they met and provided for us a statement of approval that they have no difficulty with this. And so the committee voted to approve this change. I understand from reading today's press, the stop work order in place. So well, hopefully this catches up quickly and they go back to work and begin pouring and finishing the building. The third one is just painful. Chervier, which used to be good neighbors and a good program, they apparently either sold out, and this took place about a year or so ago, and they're subcontracting to another for-profit. I don't know how it operates, but they are not the old Chervier we knew, and they have no problem cutting down trees. What they're cutting them down for, we still do not know. But the fact is, Chervier, as it presently exists, has not been responsive at all to stop. They've gotten fines for cutting down trees. It's in the National Features District, and it could be presumed that they couldn't care less. It's the cost of doing business, and the neighbors are not happy at all, nor should we be. And so this resolution suggested by Chuck is that since they are not operating in a manner which is befitting such a group, that we go to the Department of Health and have them investigate to revoke the license of the whole home. Perhaps that will wake them up, but right now they're not awakened at all. And those are the three things coming from the committee.
Let me see, are there any hands up? Bob Bender.
yeah, on the first one, Marty,
Yes,
if we can go up there. The stationery we're referring to is ERY, not ARY. It's paper as opposed to something that doesn't move.
I'll be happy to tell you, I didn't type it at all. We'll put it together, so I'm not
Me
offended.
either.
That's-
I'll fix it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Is that it?
Any other hands? Rosemary?
On the, I'll go to the second one. Is it, no, the first one, exactly the one Bob was talking about, the stationery store. I'm down as voting. That is the half hour I was not at the meeting.
Rosemary, you're muted. You're muted.
Who did
We
that?
missed the
Okay.
last minute. and a half.
Okay.
Minute.
Who muted me? Okay, so anyway, doesn't matter. I did not vote on that. That was the half hour I wasn't there, where I didn't hear Chuck talk about setting up another public hearing for School Construction Authority and Tishman to have a public hearing. I was not there for that half hour, so therefore I did not vote on this item. I wasn't there, so I'd appreciate having my name taken off of the vote. Thank you.
Okay, Bob, is your hand up from before? Or do you have-
Yes, my apologies. I'll take it down.
Okay, okay, I think that's it. We have the last resolution, yes. Please put up Camelia's resolution. Okay, Camelia is not here to speak to it. This issue was raised in LRE, I understand. And Marty, how do you think we should proceed? with
Yeah,
this?
there are two issues on this resolution. Issue number one deals with content, and I'll come back to content. And the second issue is a question of process. On the question of process, we have, she brought this up last month at the exec, and I suggested at that time that we have a process. It goes to a committee, and the committee brings it back. This is not an issue of immediacy. And besides which, she's asking for a resolution that would change the bylaws. And that takes 2 months anyway. So I don't know what the urgency is here. She came before Law, Rules, and Ethics, which I requested that she do. She made her presentation. I gave her the floor. And following that, I suggested that the item be tabled so that each member of the committee could go back and research it and decide on their own opinion what they thought we should do with this change. This is not a change that satisfies her specifically. This is a change that affects the entire community board henceforth, if such an amendment was put in place. I gave her the calendar of how things would work. We come back to our October meeting where the committee members would have a chance to have researched it, come up with opinions, we discuss it. And if the committee decides to move forward, we bring it back in November to the next executive meeting. And if the exec decided to move it forward, it would go to the November full board meeting. And I put a lot of ifs in there. And if approved that first month, then it has to go to a second month for 2 months worth of approval. I hate to say this, but along with her concerns about that we do this, also came with a threat, and that she was going to threaten discriminatory practices on behalf of either the board or the committee or whatever. Question at hand here is, in our bylaws, a committee chair has the authority to determine how large a committee is and which members should be on that committee, its size and its membership. For whatever reason, and let's not talk in vaguery, let's not be vague about it. The issue at hand is she wants to be on the land use committee, and Chuck has chosen not to have her there. He has redesigned the committee. He's established many working groups, and he's decided with whom he wishes to work. And I'll leave it that at that moment, I'll leave it at that point there. So she threatened this, she's gonna sue for sue or complain about discrimination. I don't know what the discrimination is. She threw it into her second whereas, I believe, talking about diversity. I don't know where diversity plays into this. But anyhow, on the basis of format, I need to tell you, by the way, which I find interesting, Camelia wrote 2 emails recently. And I want to read a little portion of each of them. Quote, this is as of September 28th. We are operating in the context of committees doing voluntary work on Community Board 8, a government body. I am asking the Community Board 8 chair, he's talking about Laura, to exercise her authority in overseeing the area-specific working bodies of Community Board 8 through its committees are being respected in practice by all other chairs, land use included. Meeting invitations issued on behalf of Community Board 8 should respect the structure and organization of the Community Board as a government body with a structure based on committees, clearly articulated by our Community Board 8 bylaws. So again, I am not speaking to the substance, which I could very easily do, but I want to talk about the process. And the process is she was advised, come to LRE, LRE would research it, and LRE would offer an opinion. And that's where I believe it should be. And it should be tabled again until our next meeting in November.
Okay, thank you, Marty. I see Rosemary's hand is up. Or is that from before?
You know, Kira, can you scroll it so I can read the bottom of the resolution? That I feel like maybe there's only a line left, but I can't read the bottom of do you see what I mean? Okay.
Yeah, well, that blue part is the important part.
Ah, well, okay, it wasn't on my screen. Was it on anybody else's screen? It wasn't on my screen. Okay. So that's one. Thank you for that. Number 2, it is the decision to put somebody on a committee or not, given our bylaws. It's not just the chair of the committee, it's the chair of the board. It's a twofer there. So it's both, right? Okay. And number 3, do we know whether our community board member intends to bring this to the full board? Do we know that? Do we know whether she intends to bring it? That's her intent, to bring it to the, okay, if that is the case, then I request that this be sent out to everybody to look at before she raises it at the full board. I understand everything you said, Marty, that, you know, we don't have the ability to table, but that it should come back to law, rules, and ethics and go that path. Totally understand what you're saying. But if our member is intent on bringing it to the full board, then I think the language of this should go to everybody. Does that make sense? Yes?
Yes.
Good. Thank you.
I believe that was the intent, yes.
That's her intent,
Yes.
to bring it. Yeah, okay, got it, understood.
The
Thank
office
you.
will send out all resolutions tomorrow like we normally would.
Okay.
It says it right on the bottom. That's her intent.
Well, I didn't see the bottom of the screen. I'm
Yeah.
just seeing it now as I'm jabbering, so I can't read and talk at the same time.
Right, and this was sent out to the exec, as we normally do. Are there any other hands? Okay, so we'll move on to, and thank you, Marty, thank you for that. Committee member issues for discussion. All right, I think we need a discussion of the hybrid model in terms of how successful it is and the piece of it that deals with extraordinary circumstances. We had our first discussion in September. I mean, our first ability to test the waters here. And so we did receive several requests for extraordinary circumstances to Zoom in. They ranged from childcare issues, medical issues, and they will appear in the minutes. There was a request dealing with a work conflict. We didn't feel that was extraordinary, but Marty and I have had several conversations, and there is a need to have discussion of overall criteria. What do we think qualifies as extraordinary circumstances? And this is not easy. In our discussion, things like somebody is in Florida for the month, but maybe they're in Florida for 4 months. Is 4 months an extraordinary circumstance? Is even the 1 month an extraordinary? You know, there's all different shades. So all these questions, you know, we're dealing with. And Marty, we're having conversations. The officers are having conversations. I'm having conversations with Kira. All I can say is it will be discussed at LRE to see if we can come up with some overall criteria. And then again, it's going to be landing on the lap of the committee chairs to deal with their own committee on this. And, you know, we're at the beginning of the discussion. When we passed that resolution, I don't know that we knew it was going to be thorny, but it really can be thorny. And now I see Marty's hand is up, and Marty, go ahead.
Yes, I no longer believe that the legislature gave us a gift by the hybrid model. Others may disagree, but I think there are so many pitfalls we did not predict. And in addition, there are assumptions being made by the community that we have to, we should, we must. And if a chair wants to have a regular meeting at the old style where people actually get together, there are members of the community who already believe you're violating their rights. So there are a lot of major issues that we hadn't thought through. LRE is going to discuss this at our meeting in October. There are a number of questions that I'd like raised and thought about. Extraordinary circumstances is one of them. Laura was present, as was I, at a meeting held by the borough president back in May, I guess, in which the question was, is a vacation an extraordinary circumstance? It's not listed in the law, but the answer was, it's up to your group. You have to decide. So we have to decide. As it works out, I've mentioned vacation a couple of times to Laura. I will be in Florida for the next Jewish holiday, and I'm very pleased I'll be able to attend. But I thought about it. Is that an extraordinary circumstance? Because well, it's vacation, but it's also religious observance. It gets tacky. And unless we have a set of guidelines which say this fits, then Laura is not caught in a position of saying it's okay for you, but it's not okay for them. Or there are too many people who have requested, and the list can go on. So we will discuss it. And so I welcome any comments anyone has that will help us for our meeting, if you pardon the expression, on Halloween.
Frightful topic.
Could I ask a question?
Sylvia, let me get you next. David's hand is up, and then you, Sylvia. Okay?
Sure.
Marty, are you planning on having the LRE meeting here in the office?
As of this moment, yes.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. Great idea.
That meeting will be after the 22nd. So we don't know what the mayor will do, but basically I always intended on having an in-person meeting.
Very good. Thank you.
The other comment is on the 22nd, we may find out that you could have it 100% Zoom if that's what we may find that out from the city of New York. And there would be enough time with your meeting on the 31st to make any adjustment. But I think you've been trained, Marty, right? You've
Yes.
been trained. Yeah, good. Okay, Sylvia.
Yeah, just for clarification, I wondered if the decision, who the decision is going to be made by in terms of the extraordinary circumstances. You're talking about talking to the officers, you're talking about other groups that you're talking to. Will LRE actually make that decision, which I'm a member of? Or how is that, how do you see this happening?
I see you having a discussion, coming up with those answers.
Okay, good.
Where, it's a big experiment. So for the first month, I got the calls. And we'll just see how things. The thing is, people who want to zoom in using the extraordinary circumstance, they're able to vote. They don't count as quorum, but there's always a chance that we won't be able to hear them. That, for technology reasons, that it's better if you can to be there, or because it may not work out through our best intentions, because you may not be able to hear. We may, depending on so many factors. I mean, we passed the resolution in May. We're now at the 3-month mark. I think we've had some successes. We've had some failures. I think it's very, very early in the beginning, and I would definitely renew it at this juncture, and continue to get feedback, as we progress at each meeting. Is there any other comments or hands on this topic? And I hope people will join the LRE meeting. I know I will.
I have one, can I
Continue, Sylvia.
Can I mention one more thing?
Of course.
I was en route traveling to my daughter's house on the night of the land use. I was on my cell phone. I was in attendance, and nothing that was passed that night shows me as being there.
Well,
And what do I do about
we were
that?
on the old-fashioned Zoom, right, Sylvia?
Yeah, like this. Mhm.
Right, yeah, right. So wouldn't your attendance, your phone number be on the screen? I'm not the
It
right.
should have been.
Speaking. Well, was it?
Well, I didn't see the screen because once you're on the cell phone, they don't show you the screen. They just let you
When attendance
listen
came,
and speak. That's it.
were you able to say, yes, you were here for attendance? I can't remember.
I was not there for the attendance.
Oh, you weren't there for attendance. Well,
It fell through the cracks.
well, that's technology.
There you go.
That's technology.
I
And
saw
if you
Sylvia
were,
in transit.
say you were under extraordinary circumstances, which we were not that for the land use meeting. Ostensibly, and there could be some wiggle room, you're supposed to show your face, so a phone in wouldn't really qualify, right, Marty?
I
Because
want to
you're
touch base on that.
right, that's another conversation of,
Another conversation, the law says you must be visible at all times. I see two people here who are executive board members who's, I don't see their faces, I see their names. That's in violation of the new law.
So you can't use a cell phone then.
Well, we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
some people don't have computers. This was a thorny question. It came up at the borough president's office. I think I raised that I have 1 or 2 members that don't have computers. They must call in. They're members of the board, and other people, other district managers and chairs said, you have 1 or 2, we have 10, 50, we have many that don't have
Right.
computers. And then Tom Lucania, who was moderating the group from the borough president's office, said, all right, that's that could be worked around. That could be worked around. So it hasn't really been discussed since.
That
But-
could be a discrimination situation.
Could be. Sylvia, any other comments?
No,
Okay, thank
that's
you.
it.
Rosemary, your hand is up.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit confused. Are we going to have a resolution updating or putting forward hybrid? You mentioned 3 months are up. Is there some action that going to come before the board, or I'm misunderstanding this?
It's up to us. It's not in stone. Let me see if I can find that resolution. It said that we would
That we table that conversation.
reevaluate. I'm sorry, who's speaking?
And I recommend we table that conversation until after the LRE meeting, which will come up with recommendations.
No, the board meeting occurs before LRE.
I understand that.
No, well, I don't think it's black and white. I think if the board decided to give more time, we wouldn't be saying we're throwing out the resolution, or we have to reiterate that we're keeping the resolution. I think we just have time. I wanted to remind people that it is a good idea to evaluate and look at our progress. And I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, I think it's kind of early to cancel the resolution. I think most people would agree. But we're just discussing, we're at that 3-point mark. So no, I'm not
But
expecting.
it matters what the resolution said. It doesn't matter what we think. What did the resolution say? Did it say it would come back at a time certain to be evaluated? If it did, then that has to be. It's the resolution governs, not what we feel, right? That's what I'm confused about. I haven't read the resolution in months. So that's what I'm asking you, Madam Chair. Does it say that there has to be action this month or not?
It doesn't have to be action.
Okay.
It has to be a review of it, and there could be an action.
Okay,
But again, we'll
But-
circle back on that.
fine, okay,
Uh,
that's an answer.
Marty and then Ed.
Yeah, I just have one last point I want to make concerning LRE. At the last meeting, and I want to thank Sergio because he brought it to our attention, is that there's a movement throughout the state to make sure, or to attempt to make sure, that state officials or board members or whatever, in our case, community board members, have separate city provided email addresses, so that all communication concerning the community board could be subject to Freedom of Information Act, and therefore be easily presented. It's been researched in the city here. They do not have the capacity. They claim they don't have the capacity to give every community board member a .gov email address. So the recommendation is, and has always been, for every board member, and I wanted to say this last month and didn't, I hope to say it next week, if every board member should have a separate, either a separate email address or a separate folder in which all of the items relating to the community board are kept. So if someone were to, under FOIL, request something, it'd be very easy to deliver it.
I understand that Kira has written to everybody in the city to research this. Initially, we were told that it's impossible for the city of New York to give hundreds of people city email addresses. They come, they go, board members. Kira, if you could just
Yeah, sure.
comment on that.
Sergio, we received your request, as you know, we've sent it in again. I included the mayor's office, the commissioner of Do It, which is now called OTI. Laura, you were there in the office with me when our Do It rep came.
Yes.
He was aware they were looking into it, and he told me I would be getting an answer from his boss. So Sergio, we haven't received anything yet. I'm happy to follow up again. You know, but we have passed it along.
Thank you.
And you
I
did
made a
ask
written
for
request.
something in writing. You asked for.
Yeah,
a
and I
response
requested
in
something
writing.
back in writing.
Yes, we did. And
Yeah, when he was there, I made it clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see Ed Green and then Rosemary. Okay, Ed?
I'm gonna be quick because I'm just gonna piggyback on something Rosemary said earlier because I didn't get full clarification for this. So is there, it seemed like you left it kind of open-ended as far as, is there an expiration date on the last resolution? That's basically how I would put it in simplest terms. Is there any physical language that states there's an expiration date? If so, we have to move on it at that particular time. Otherwise, in my estimation, it expires.
Ed is one of the old school. He's holding his meetings. We will endeavor to implement the hybrid model. The public meeting utilize. Okay. I'll do the therefore be it resolves. The Bronx Community Board 8 and its committees at their discretion adopt the hybrid model to provide the public, including those with disabilities, the ability to attend and participate remotely, with the condition that the board will review its efficacy. Actually, this must not be the most recent because it said 6 months. I seem to recall 3 months.
Laura, no, I believe it was raised 3 months, but it was agreed upon and voted on at 6 months.
Okay. Therefore, we'll endeavor to implement the hybrid model after research, investment in appropriate technology, and training of board members in its use have been completed, and that will utilize video conferencing, whatever. Yeah.
If it's 6 months, this is a moot conversation right now, but just mark that date on your calendar. So.
No, but it's not moot because part of being in the hybrid model is this extenuating circumstances. And there are boards that say the hell with this, I'm not dealing with that. And they're not moving. We have to master this extenuating circumstance question. Because I asked Tom Lucania if you could be on the hybrid model and modify the extenuating circumstances or do, anything to change that or opt out of extenuating circumstances. And it was explained to me that it's part of the legislation, so that if you want to be considered the hybrid model, you have to hook, line, and sinker, accept the extenuating circumstances. So I think if this is a problem, it would definitely affect how we, feel about the hybrid model. Also, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you opted out of the hybrid model, you could still do what you do because it's a great idea to engage the public, which is why we're endeavoring this to begin with. You could still have hybrid, meetings with the public. So, all right, so everybody, it will be discussed at LRE, and I want to thank Marty for his leadership there. Look forward to working with him, but it is very thorny when you have to say yes, you have to say no to somebody, and there's lots of shades of gray on this. Okay, I see 2 hands. I don't know if they're from before. Rosemary, and then I see David.
Okay, so I'd just like to raise with Marty a concern I have with the statement. If you just get a separate email address, you have saved yourself from FOIL to your personal address. I think I said that right. And Kira Gannon will stand with me on this issue because we went through the most massive FOIL request from the Riverdale Press, and we're told point blank by the borough president's office, you cannot exempt FOIL by putting stuff into your personal email. By having a separate address that says CB8 or something, that does not protect your personal email from a FOIL request from information that is being requested by the public. I lived through it. Kira, you can tell them what we lived through. And just as you hear this and are going down that road, please double, triple, quadruple check that, because we were told in no uncertain circumstances, a separate email address will not secure information against in the face of a FOIL request. Okay, that's all.
David.
Thank you.
Yes, and in a similar vein, the element I had not heard before was this concept of taking the emails and putting them all in a separate folder, which is much easier because I'm exploring getting another address, which is really a pain. But I think we need a real clarity on the concept of putting things in a folder, because that's actually quite simple. But does it in fact, as Rosemary suggests, protect you from having a FOIL inquiry into your whole email inbox? So I would like them to give us a definitive answer on that element.
Sergio, your hand is up.
Yeah, it's not just the point of the trouble of a FOIL request. These things are, the conversations that we have back and forth, they're the property of the public. They're not ours. We should not be keeping them, in our own private email servers, no matter what they're called. It should not be government information, government documents. The process should not be in somebody's personal file. I think that, I'm pretty certain that's what the law is. That's what the intent of the law is. And recent history has shown it's not a good thing when individuals are allowed to keep government things in private spaces, which is what that is. The city has contractors that come and go, tens of thousands of them. If it causes some administrative trouble, extra work for somebody, that's not a reason not to follow the law and the spirit of the law. That's really, really my point. It's been my point for a couple of years.
But that's why we need definition on both elements rather than speculation, which is what we're doing.
It's not speculation, it's in the law. It's very clear. That's why government business is transacted on government servers, not on private servers.
Well, then who is it that said a separate email address and separate folders? Where did that come from?
I take the blame.
Yeah, I think we had workarounds throughout the years, but they've been wrong. We have to look at things under the current law, under what people, what's generally accepted now is that is no longer something that's appropriate. It never really was, but there's no reason for somebody to.
That's why we need the president's office to confirm or deny it.
Well, we were very
that's why I'm
clear.
asking for a written response.
Very good. I agree.
I can't impress. The letter that went out to the powers that be said that we must have a written response, that you want a written response, Sergio. So we'll keep trucking on that. I don't see any other hands. The last item, follow up on outstanding issues. Does anybody have anything to contribute? If not, okay, I see Rosemary and David.
Rosemary, you're muted.
Rosemary,
You're muted.
Rosemary, are you?
Okay, got it. Okay, so this is a request, and I don't know who I'm making this request to, either board office or maybe Kelly would be part of this. It's my understanding that, and sorry, I was not able to attend the last TNT meeting. I understand New York State DOT came and made a presentation about doing construction work on Henry Hudson Parkway West from 231st to 235th. It would take a year and a half, and that's 6 months out of that year and a half, there would be no parking on Henry Hudson Parkway West, and they'd be working through the night, not in the day, through the night. Needless to say, the only building affected is the Whitehall. The only one from 231st to 235th. Then again, the noise will go across to the other side of the highway. But here, my request is the following: can we get somebody from New York State DOT who could have a conversation or a meeting with the resident manager of this building to understand timing, coordination. You know, we have virtually a hospital outside, how everything would work. Is there somebody, the office, or maybe Kelly, or maybe the office can get us somebody in New York State to be able to talk to who runs this building?
Okay, if the Whitehall, I'm sure, sent the board all their issues and questions, do we have that presentation?
No, Laura, we weren't informed of the meeting, so you didn't get any questions from us because we weren't informed.
No,
of it.
but
That's not true, Rosemary. It was on the agenda for the traffic transportation.
I know. No, I understand. It was on the agenda. I do understand that, but the people who run the building were unaware of it. I'm not
No.
faulting anybody for this at all.
I'm not accusing you of anything, Rosemary.
Okay.
All I'm
Mhm.
saying is that you made a statement that no one had the information, but it was on the agenda and the information was
Yes.
distributed to the community at large. I am not the keeper of the distribution list, so I don't know who received it. I'm assuming that someone in the building would have received it. But to your original question, is it possible to arrange a meeting?
Exactly.
DOT has been asked to provide us with a liaison for the project, and we can convey that information to the liaison and the board office. I'm asking the board office to engage, to arrange for a meeting between the Whitehall building and New York State
Perfect.
DOT.
That would be perfect. Thank you, Kelly. That's all I'm asking for, that
You're
there
welcome.
that there be that communication back and forth. Thank
but
you.
certainly the presentation was actually up on the website. I would start with your building, looking at the presentation that they gave us. And that would elicit specific questions and would be helpful. That's what I started to say, that the presentation was very detailed. Okay. I would start there.
Okay, but we will try and get a communication between New York State DOT people and the people in the building.
Right,
The
but
office will
I
take care of
Good.
that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank
you.
That's done, but I do suggest looking at that presentation, and that would be helpful to start the whole process with them.
I did look at the presentation. It's drawings with no explanation. So that's the thing. It's drawings and you can't tell anything from sketches. Engineers' drawings doesn't tell you a year and a half, 6 months, no parking, working through the night. Those are the elements that the building really
The other
needs
thing,
to
the other thing is, there were a lot of questions. The acoustics were terrible that night, I have to say. But also getting the recording of the meeting where, you would at least get that. That would help
Just
the
the
recording.
connection between New York
Yeah.
State DOT
Yeah.
and the bill, that's all I'm asking for.
They-
If that could be done, that would be very good and helpful. Thank you.
Also, I will
David.
note, and I'm sorry, David, if I'm jumping over you and Madam Chair. If I'm
Please.
Oh, go ahead.
I will note that it was just said at the meeting that they have not secured the requisite permits from New York City DOT, so they are not sure what the hours are at this point. So they will not be able to communicate that to the community until they have secured the requisite permits.
Thank you.
All right.
Again, thank you again.
David.
My pleasure.
Just a couple of clerical or administrative things. I'll be very quick. And it's been pretty good through all the chaos of remote working and all that sort of stuff. But the memos that we get I'm asking that the memos that we get for meeting announcements, that the subject, you've done a very good job of putting the body or the agenda in the body of the email as well as an attachment. I'm just asking that the subject line contain the committee, the date, the time, and the location. Like today, it said exec tonight. what happens that it was gonna be on Zoom, it could have just said exec, tonight, 7 o'clock, Zoom, just in the subject line, that would be helpful. And then when we send out amended whatevers, agendas or what have you, please follow the standard convention of strike through of the old and underscore, and if you wish, red of the new, the change, because recently there were a couple of things that you really had to search through many lines to figure out what had changed in comparison. And then the last thing is about our calendar. This month's calendar shows that there's no work on 3 or 4 days. Now, that may mean something downtown, but I don't think it looks good on our calendar to say no work. It could be a city holiday or whatever, either say city holiday or just ignore it or say, office closed or whatever's relevant. But I think saying no work is not helpful and doesn't look good for us.
David, just to clarify, that's for Jewish holidays where no work is permitted. I believe we always had it on there. I can go back and check, but the office was working those days. It's just there's no meetings because of the Jewish holidays and no work is permitted.
Then let's state that, just say,
Okay,
no meetings for holiday. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, David. We got all that. So, if there's no further hands up or items, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Stay well, stay healthy. And thanks for a very, very good discussion. Very productive. Okay, good night, everybody.